what success really looks like for people who are moving towards remission and how they're getting there really. There's 5 parts that I want to discuss today. And the first is looking at how to get the perfect approach between coaching and education. And the second is that S-curve that happens when people are getting improvements on their numbers, whether that's their A1C or their weight. And the third is the exponential curve of ease, especially when we're thinking about healthy habits. The fourth is the holistic approach of combining nutrition, exercise, well-being, sleep, stress, and psychology. And finally, the multidisciplinary approach of bringing multiple experts together and what can happen when you have a combined approach. Getting that perfect approach of coaching and education is really quite difficult, but there are a few things that kind of pull at each other that we've got to try and combine together at the same time. So the first is making it personalized, but yet at the same time making it so that they can follow a framework. The second is making it easy, but it still remains structured for them. It combines education and coaching together, but it gives them accountability yet independence, gives them autonomy, but with support. And finally, it's about balancing all of this together. So how do we do that? And that's where I think education and coaching go hand in hand, because the education can be provided consistently between people, but then how do you personalize the education? The education is the structured content, but the education is more than just providing the same education for each person. We've then got to make sure that people are implementing it. So when we check their knowledge, we don't just check knowledge, we check implementation. It's very different there because the knowledge itself doesn't necessarily lead to behavior change. And for many people, they already know certain things. So what we want to do is we want to take that knowledge and turn it into something that's much more actionable to them. And so when we check in with them, we're checking in what they're already doing, where they're struggling, what questions they have for us, and then we can really home in and go deeper in a really targeted way to where they're struggling. Now, one of the things with coaching is that it gives people accountability, and that's one of the reasons why people really like to be coached. But we have to get that blend between accountability and independence, because the independence is what's going to get them to sustain what they're achieving. So what we try and do is guide them through the coaching modules, guide them through the coaching, but at the same time, we're encouraging clients to take independence of the actions, whether that's getting accountability within their own social framework, whether it's actually taking more ownership of the actions that they're taking. We're really trying to push them to make this last in the long run, because once they leave the program, that's not the end of their journey. That's the end of their journey with me, and I don't want them to have to come back in 6 to 12 months and not have succeeded. We want them to move forward. We want them to maintain the results that they've gained on the program. So it can sometimes feel like a bit of a hands-off approach, but then the coaching is really about helping them to find their own answers. It's about getting them to find new ways of thinking, new ways of finding ways to make behavior habits and healthy habits stick. It's not about us providing answers, because we need people to take ownership. You need to take ownership of your own health. And people are doing that by joining the program, but then we want them to take ownership of the actions that they're taking. And we don't want them just to be thinking, well, the doctor said this, or the coach said this, I've got to implement it. It's got to come from something deeper, from more of an intrinsic motivation. So we try and find that deep motivation and work with them on that. I like to think of it as riding a bike. We need the stabilizers to help get us off the ground, and we need a little bit of support, people watching us as we're getting to learn the ride bike. But as soon as we're up and running, we can hand away from the guidance and support that we've been receiving. So that's really how we want people to think about this. Now, the S-curve of success. The one thing that my clients consistently get frustrated about very early on is not seeing the numbers change. But we give it a month, and usually less than a month, but numbers start to make big differences after that. They start to move really, really quickly. And that's simply because we're not giving quick advice. We're not telling people to completely cut what they're doing, to start starving themselves and to be cutting calories fast. Because frankly, that method can get you to lower your weight quickly, but that isn't going to drive your health. So this is more than just lowering weight, lowering A1C. This is about longevity. And if we're just telling you to lose weight, you're losing muscle, you're losing fat, you're not improving your body composition. And while losing fat can help to reach lower A1C and help you to move towards remission, it's not really sustainable. And then what are you going to do once you've been starving yourself for a number of months? Are you going to go back to eating normally? Are you going to continue to restrict yourself? What is going to be your habits? And it's really hard to know what your habits are going to be. So this is why it's really, really important that we don't just go gung-ho and get you to be dropping weight fast. Yes, you can get those sort of results quickly, but they're not the way that I want to work with clients, because I want people to essentially make me redundant in the long run. Things take time to come together. And essentially one of the things that we're looking at here is habit stacking. When you develop good habits, one habit at a time may not necessarily lead to a shift. But when you add on habits on top of each other, then the shift starts to happen. And so often people start doing good things, they don't see results, and they stop doing it, and then they choose something else to try and do. And ultimately, it probably was that all of those things together, when you combine them, actually then lead to the results that people are looking for. And the same with nutrition. We can make one or two changes, and sometimes we don't see things happen. And sometimes people are looking on a day-to-day basis, and really what we should be looking at is a monthly basis. And interim of that is weeks. And with weeks, we can start to see change. So I do get people to track their data. It is really helpful, but I also help them to reduce their expectations as well. Then post month one, things start moving, things start happening, people trust the process, and then it starts to become easy. And that's when we move into the exponential curve of ease. Seeing results is one thing, but feeling them is another. And that really drives behavior. So when people feel more energy, when they're sleeping better, rather than looking at the waist size measurement, that's what drives them to want to do more things. They're like, I actually feel better, I want to do more of this. And then when it stops being a chore and they're saying, yes, I actually want to go to the gym, that's really important for me. I actually want to go and do the walk, or I actually want to do my meeting while walking. That is when the habits start to really stick. When people really feel them internally inside their body, they often start thinking, why wasn't I doing this before? Why wasn't this the status quo for the way that I live my life? And that's the exponential curve of easy habits. Now, at some point, everyone reaches a plateau. You can't not reach a plateau. It's expected. We can't continue to keep losing weight, because we'll also end up in nothingness, and your A1C can't continue to drop. At least at some point it's going to stabilize. But between dropping and stabilizing, it's going to reach a curve of plateauing. So the plateau is obviously flat, but before then it's going to start to slow down. Some people start to panic at this stage, but there's certainly no reason to panic, even if we haven't reached the goal that you set at the start. And the reason for that is we just need to add on one or two more extra habits on top of what you're already doing well. And remember, this has to be easy. So if you're struggling at this point, we need to look at the things that you're doing well and focus on the strengths, then look to the weaknesses, go deeper sometimes, see why you're struggling, and then we can take action based on that. Eventually you'll find habits that work for you, and you'll find habits that don't work for you. You're going to find a formula that works for you with a range of healthy habits, a range of changes that you've made that really is easy for you. It's not one thing. And often people say, what's the thing you can tell me to help me improve my diabetes? And really we need to know where you're at, and then we need to start making changes from there. So then you're probably wondering, what are all those things that you need to help you get there? I always think of it as the news: nutrition, exercise, well-being, sleep and stress, followed by the psychological elements, which is dealing with adverse childhood and adulthood experiences, nurturing that positive and open growth mindset, and finally helping to develop those healthy habits that are easy to stick to in the long run. And then that's where that blend of education and coaching really comes in, and combining it all together is personalizing it and making this really easy for this to last in the long run. Now, the final factor is a combination of expert minds coming together, the multidisciplinary approach. So that looks at behavior change, it looks at coaching, looks at medical teams, lifestyle medicine, and it also looks to dietitians and nutritionists, and handpicking the right people that are right for your needs. When you get the right support together, it means that you can learn faster, get results faster, and you've got the right blend of people to help you get what you need to reach remission.